So we filled our overwintered tunnel with a wide diversity of crops, and the goal of that is to try and have as long a harvest window as possible in the early to late spring until we're able to start harvesting off of our field crops. And so of the crops that we've planted into our tunnel, we have a few different groupings of them based on kind of their harvest style and then also the timing of the blooms. And so we have a grouping of things that come on first and earliest in the tunnel, and many of those are things that we would anticipate getting like 1 or 2 really good cuts on, and then those will be done. We have another grouping of crops that we expect to be able to harvest off of continually during the whole spring season. So for at least 4 to 6 weeks, we'll be continuously cutting off of these crops. And then we have another, a third grouping of crops that are later to bloom for us in our tunnel, but really come on at a good time after the early crops have bloomed out, and that will kind of carry us through in the tunnel with good marketable blooms until our field crops are ready to be harvested from. So I am going to walk you through each of those groups and show some examples of each of those. I'm going to start with what is the earliest to bloom in our tunnel, and most of these here in front of me are things that you'll get 1 or 2 good cuts off of. So I'll show some examples of these here. So we have right here is bachelor button. You can see really strong, sturdy stems. These grow really tall and vigorously in the tunnel, and we'll expect 1 or 2 good cuts off of those earlier in the season. We have Nigella. This is Love in a Mist. You can see again a really nice sturdy bunches, and these are 1 or 2 cuts for us. Agrostoma is really also an early productive crop for us in the tunnel. You can see the length of those stems. We also have Ami white dill. This is another one that could be 1 to 2 cuts. You might be able to also get more cuts off of this, again, depending on how long you're able to leave it in your tunnel and kind of what your conditions are. Orlia does really nicely for us early in the tunnel, and you can see really strong, sturdy stems on those. Again, just probably best for 1 or 2 good cuts. Saponaria Pink Beauty. This is a really great kind of airy, sort of sparkly filler that we really like in the tunnel. But again, it's more of a 1 cut and early. So once you cut from this, it's pretty much done. Stock. So as I've mentioned before, stock is something that we find does best for us when we plant it early in the spring. It doesn't do as well for us overwintered, but it's definitely a high quality spring tunnel planting for us. And again, with the stock, these are some different colors from the Iron series here, and these are 1 cuts for us. However, you could plant a couple of successions of these in the spring tunnel. They're pretty quick to grow from seedlings, and again, they do really well for us in the early spring. With seedings, could start as early as January, again, for us. A couple of other options for greenery for us in the early spring tunnel. This is cress. This is again one of the first and the earliest options for greenery. One of the nice things about the cress is that we're growing it for the pods that add some really nice texture. So once the pods form, this will hold for quite a while, both in the tunnel and then in a cooler, because the flowers have already passed. So it's mostly the pods that are a little bit more shelf stable than the blooms. We have Bells of Ireland, which has done really well for us in the tunnel. The plants are really tall. You can see the stems are really long and sturdy, and again, quite early. And then finally, the last one is Bupleurum. And this is also done really well in the tunnel. The plants, again, get a lot taller than you would expect them to be in the field, but it's a really fantastic option just to add some interest and some texture and to bouquets, there's a really nice sort of gray-green foliage with a little bit of pops of yellow, and it blends really well with a lot of the different flowering crops that we have here. So this next set of flowers that I'm going to talk about are things that we are able to harvest off of early in the tunnel. They bloom early, but they will also provide multiple cuts over the course of the spring. So we anticipate being able to harvest off of these for several weeks from our tunnel. And these are Cynoglossum, forget-me-not. We have pink and blue, really beautiful, tall, sturdy stems, taller than we would anticipate getting in a field planting. We have sweet peas, which are wonderful and fragrant, and you can see we have some here where we've harvested the greenery or the foliage, which is really great for adding into bouquets. And then we also have a bunch of just the single stems, which again, these will bloom abundantly from the middle of May well into June for us. We also have digitalis or foxglove in several different varieties. These are all biennial varieties here, blooming off of an October planting in our tunnel. So we have sugar plum, we have Pam's Choice, and we have pink gin as well. And these are, we'll get a really nice, tall, long-stemmed first cut off of these, but then we'll also get the side shoots off of these as well. So we'll be harvesting from these for several weeks in the season. Snapdragons are another really great cut and come again crop for the tunnel. So these are examples of some snapdragons from our first harvesting out of the tunnel, but again, they'll put up nice side shoots, so we'll get a second cut off of these later in the season. Dianthus from the Sweet series. This is the white, but all of the other sweet colors would do well in an overwintered planting in a tunnel. These are one of the earliest things that we harvested out of our tunnel. In mid-April, we started cutting off of these, and we're still cutting off of them today. This is June 4th, and you can see really sturdy stems, uniform, globe-shaped, bright white blooms. And then finally, we have pansies. This is brush strokes, and these have also been really, have had a really long life in our tunnel. So these started blooming the end of April, beginning of May, and as the days have lengthened, the stems have increased in length as well. And so we're still cutting off of these today. You can see nice long stems, and these provide, along with a really beautiful bright pop of color, the stems also provide some nice greenery to mix in with bouquets as well. And as I mentioned before, everything that's here are things that we're anticipating being able to use in our early spring bouquets out of our tunnel, but we're also planning to be able to pair these with later blooming crops that we have in the tunnel as well. And so just again, as a visual comparison, everything that's on the table here bloomed in time, or is blooming in time to pair with all of these earlier 1 or 2 cut crops. But the benefit of these is that we'll be able to continue harvesting from them well into June. So we wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about some other really beautiful early spring crops that pair wonderfully with the things that we have been pulling out of our overwintered tunnel. So in this bucket right here, we have anemones, Icelandic poppies, and ranunculus. And these were not overwintered. These were all planted in a unheated spring tunnel here in central Maine, and we seeded or sprouted the corms on these in January, end of January, beginning of February, and planted them out into our tunnel in early March. So we're right in kind of peak bloom for these crops at the end of May, beginning of June, as we are pulling a lot of really great material from our overwintered tunnel as well. So to give an example of what's possible for pairing some of these really popular early spring crops with some of our overwintered material, and these are, you can see, really beautiful, bright, colorful blooms, high quality stems coming, and it's really nice to see, again, what you have, or what we have here coming out of our overwinter tunnel. We have snapdragon and cyanoglossom and stock that are also really bold, vibrant, beautiful colors, and then compare just really well with some of the colors of ranunculus or anemone and poppies, and can expand the possibilities for what you could offer, either as part of your spring CSA or as part of your floral design or wedding offerings, or even as a wholesale option if you're selling to wholesale florists. So again, just wanted to give some context of and examples of the timing of some other popular early spring crops, the poppies, the anemones, the ranunculus that you may already be growing, and to give an idea of what it might look like if you were able to grow in an unheated tunnel, and some of the possibilities to expand what you could offer. So the last set of crops that I'm going to talk about today are the things that are a little later to bloom in our overwintered tunnels. So again, everything that you see here, we started from seed in August to early September of last year, planted into our tunnel in mid-October, and are now today it's June 4th. These are some of the first harvest, kind of a sneak peek of what will be coming out of the tunnel in the next couple of weeks. So first we have some really beautiful larkspur. This is the fancy pink with white bee, and this is misty lavender, a really beautiful sort of gray, blue, lavender tones, and really tall, sturdy stems. We have also Nigella. This is Delft Blue, and this is a little bit later than the Nigella Love in a Mist in our tunnel plantings. You can see really large, beautiful blooms with a little bit of purple and white and green. So these are just starting to open up for us. So this is Dara Flowering Carrot. There's a really beautiful, tall, straight stems and a nice range of colors, from sort of a chocolatey maroon colors to more pinky tones, and even to a really light pink and cream on those blooms. We'll be harvesting a lot more of these over the next few weeks. And then we have a few things that have not flowered yet, a few different dianthus that haven't flowered yet, but will be soon, and we'll be harvesting for the blooms. But for right now, both of these varieties, this is from the Amazon series of dianthus, you can see that green is actually a really attractive and nice, and does well mixed in as some greenery in bouquets. So both of these, and then this bunch is from the Chabot series of carnations, and again, you can see it's just starting to form buds, and these will be opening up over the next few weeks. But for right now, it actually is a really nice, sturdy sort of accent plant to mix into bouquets. The foliage is a really attractive sort of silvery gray green, and it kind of has a airy, willowy look. Looks really nice against some of the gray tones of the Delft Blue and the Larkspur Misty Lavender and the Dara. And again, this Amazon is a little bit of a brighter green, but still really nice, sturdy stems. The tufts where the buds will be forming add a little bit of sparkle and texture to bouquets. And then finally, we have Dusty Miller. And so we have a couple of different varieties here. And again, really tall, long stems, taller than you would anticipate finding in a field planting. And this is just some of the first stems that we've been able to harvest off of this. So again, we expect more from all of these crops in the next few weeks. So again, to give context, everything that you see blooming in this bucket here is part of our later blooming succession of flowers in our tunnel, and we'll be harvesting off of these over the next several weeks, well into June. And at the same time, we still anticipate being able to cut off of the things that you see here in this bucket. So we'll be, to pair with what's here, we'll also be continuing to harvest the snapdragon, the cyanoglossom, digitalis, the dianthus from the Amazon, and the sweet series, and then sweet peas, pansies, and digitalis. Along with these that you see here that are just starting to bloom, we have 4 more crops that have not bloomed yet. We have Ami green mist, we have Scabiosa, Rudbeckia, and Matricaria. So we'll have those to add to this bucket over the next few weeks as well to pair with everything that you see here. It is June 26th, and we're getting ready to wrap up our season in this overwintered tunnel and transition out to our field crops and our later planted spring tunnel crops. But before we do that, I wanted to take a little bit of time and sort of do a wrap up in here and show you some of the later blooming crops that we've had success with in our overwintered tunnel. So I'll show you some of those that are blooming a little bit later, and then I'm also going to talk about some of the crops that we've been harvesting off of continuously, sort of cut and come again crops that we've really appreciated in the tunnel, that are still blooming now late into June and into the beginning of July. So I'll start with the group of things that are later to bloom in our tunnel. And so one of these that we've talked about a little bit is Dara. This is Daucus Dara, really sturdy, tall stems, beautiful chocolatey colored blooms. This is a great, even though it's a little later, it's just fantastic in our tunnel, and it's a great one to look forward to later in the spring and early summer. This is Matricaria. This variety is Virgo. This is another later blooming variety in the tunnel, and again, long, straight stems, really vibrant white blooms, and a good producer as well. A really fun one in the tunnel are these Scabiosa. These, you can see just the size of these blooms. That's probably their most outstanding feature that we've seen in a tunnel planting. The plants do get really tall as well, but the size of these blooms is what makes them really stand out. So these are great to have, again, end of June, beginning of July. We have some Rudbeckia here. This is Cherokee Sunset. We've trialed a lot of Rudbeckia varieties, and they all do really well for us in the tunnel. Nice wide blooms, really dramatic and vibrant. And then the last one that I wanted to mention are these Chabot carnations. And these are later blooming in the tunnel, but they're really just full, beautiful double blooms, definitely worth the wait. Very productive and really fragrant. So those are the things that we really look forward to at the end of our overwinter tunnel season. But along with those, what you can see in some of these buckets here are things that we've been able to continuously cut off of. So I wanted to just mention a few of those. We talked in an earlier video about our digitalis, our foxglove plantings. So we're seeing a nice second flush off of those right now too. So this is the Cafe Creme digitalis, really beautiful, long, sturdy stems, a great color palette, really soft, creamy with gold and brown and these really delicate bells. I love this one. I think it's my favorite. We also have a really nice second flush coming off of the Pink Gin digitalis. These are really, again, sturdy stems, beautiful, soft shell pink color. We're getting the second flush off of several of our Snapdragon varieties too. So again, it's the end of June. We'll be transitioning to harvesting off of our field snaps in the next couple of weeks. So it's really good timing to be able to get a second cut off of these tunnel planted Snapdragons. So this is Costa Silver. We have some of the Madam Butterflies that are starting up again, really beautiful, vibrant colors. And so again, this is a nice sort of holdover between the spring tunnel or overwinter tunnel plantings and what's going to be coming out of the field. We also have some really gorgeous sweet peas, and these we've been harvesting off of for weeks now, and you can see still getting a lot of really nice stems. The foliage on these is great to fill out a bouquet, and they're also really fragrant, and these have just been kind of powerhouses for us in the tunnel from the very beginning to the very end. The sweet peas are just fantastic. We've been also kind of pleasantly surprised to see Another flush off of our Bells of Ireland planting. This was a nice early one, but we've actually just been able to get a second cut of stems off of here. So again, another nice sort of a green, vibrant color off of these that works well with a lot of these brighter blooms that we're getting. So again, just a wrap up of what we're getting from our overwintered tunnel planting at the end of June, beginning of July. We will be harvesting off of these for a few more weeks probably, and then transitioning out to the field. So that wraps up what we have to share today. Again, this is the end of June, the sort of the wrap up of our overwintered tunnel trialing, and thank you very much for watching. I hope that this has given you some ideas and about what some of the possibilities are for overwintering in colder climates and ways to extend your season with cut flowers and cool season annual and perennial crops. So we are wrapping up our overwintered tunnel trial for this year. We've been really happy with how it's turned out and have been able to show you a lot of videos of the different crops that have bloomed over the season. One last thing that I wanted to say is that none of this would have been possible without the hard work of our greenhouse crew here at Johnny's. We have a really great greenhouse team. Pam is the greenhouse manager and does a great job overseeing the logistics. She also handles the beneficial insects and disease scouting, which is really helpful for us. We have Hope and RJ who have done a really great job through the whole season keeping the plantings maintained. They've done a lot of staking and trellising and a lot of laying down the mulch and planting, and so really appreciate that. Also, Matt is actually built the greenhouse that we're standing in, so this trial wouldn't have been possible without his hard work either. He's a kind of a wizard with the logistics and irrigation and all things tunnel systems. So as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to give a shout out to that crew and say thanks to you all for watching, and stay tuned for more.